That special relationship between the US and the UK largely depends on the president's relationship with the royal family. And we know with Trump that it is a really special relationship. He's very fond, he's an Anglophile, but he's a monarchist as well.
And the question does get asked a lot, usually by Republican groups, but it's what is the role of the royal family in a modern society? And you've touched on it there. It's, on the one hand, we have the charities and the philanthropic work, and on the other hand, though, it's the power they can wield in situations where there is huge change in the world. I suppose they're a constant.
Well, I mean, their role is to be head of state, but not political. So, they can't get involved in politics, but I think that does enable them to have a different relationship with other world leaders. And I think when you look at King Charles particularly, he's been very, very successful at that. And of course, this had led to a lot of speculation as to whether there's going to be a tour, either, the King visiting America or Trump coming over here for a state visit. And the palace is saying there's nothing in the diary yet. I mean, these tours take a long time to plan. And of course, the president's a busy man and the king is a busy man. And with sort of 6 months of planning going into any tour, I think it's probably unlikely for this year, but I think there's every chance that we can see Trump back over here in Britain for a tour next year. And of course, if that happens, the red carpet at Buckingham Palace will very firmly be rolled out for him.
As you said earlier, he's a monarchist, so we know he loves the pomp and pageantry, and who wouldn't? Do you think that's likely to be how it goes then, that he comes here as opposed to them travelling to the US?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very likely that he'll come over here. I think possibly we could see the Prince and Princess of Wales go over to the States. They've been there before. They've always been very, very well received. But yes, I think I probably would put my money on the fact that it'll be Trump coming over here. I mean, the King's got he's got overseas tours coming up this year. I mean, there's some big realms that he needs to visit. Of course, he did Australia last year, but Canada's, Canada's having an election this year, so he can't go this year. I'd expect him to go to Canada next year, and that might pave the way for a visit to North America. We'll have to wait and see, but I think there has been speculation as to whether it will happen this year. I think that's probably a little premature, but it will happen, absolutely.
One royal we haven't spoken about for a few weeks, and I want to address that quickly, is Prince Andrew. After the scandals of last month, he's been largely out of the limelight. Do you think that we've seen the last of him in public life, or do you think he's got the message?
Well, I think we probably have seen the last of him in terms of public life, certainly in terms of carrying out any duties on behalf of the royal family.
I felt like he was pictured a bit more visibly with the royal family over the last year or so. I felt like he was just a little bit more front and centre.
Well, he was, but you're right, Brontë, because he was very much centre at the memorial for King Constantine of Greece, and that had such a backlash in the media. And of course, this was when the king wasn't well and the princess was out of the picture, and it sort of looked as if the Duke of York seized upon that moment to sort of re-establish his authority as a family figure. I think his absence at Christmas was important, and as you say, hasn't been seen much since then. I think we'll probably see occasional pictures of him out riding in Windsor, but I think there is a feeling that he just needs to be kept at a distance to protect the reputation of the monarchy, both here in the UK, but, further overseas internationally as well.
Absolutely. And on a lighter note, we've got to wish the Duchess of Edinburgh a very happy birthday. And as you mentioned earlier, what a star player she has become in the royal family. So we know a lot about the Duchess, having had her in public life for so long, but you've been on the royal beat for so long. What's your impression of Sophie? What do you know about her?
Well, I think she's remarkably down to earth. I mean, we were talking earlier about how she's raised her children, without royal titles, away from the media spotlight. And she was always a great favourite of the late Queen, who saw her not really as a daughter-in-law, but as a second daughter. She used to call her Mama. Sophie used to call the Queen Mama. They were incredibly close. And I think, the one thing that you see with Sophie is her loyalty and her duty and her absolute commitment to the crown. When the late Duke of Edinburgh died, she was there very much for the Queen as a rock for her. When Charles succeeded the Queen to the throne, she was very supportive of the King. And when he had to take some time out from royal duties, she was asked to represent him. And I think, she didn't take that title on, the Duchess of Edinburgh, lightly. It's a title that won't continue through to her children. That title will move from her to Princess Charlotte. And of course, Edward as Duke of Edinburgh. These are weighty titles. They take them very seriously. And I think we've seen in the last couple of years someone who is incredibly hardworking, who puts the spotlight on perhaps issues that we wouldn't normally associate with the royals. You know, women who are victims of war and sexual abuse and rape and difficult subjects that the Duchess has really gone to highlight. You know, she's been to Ukraine, she's been to some war-torn areas, she's done some really controversial work. You know, she's on a mission to sort of improve vision around the world, particularly in poor countries in Africa, largely because her daughter suffered a vision impairment when she was younger. So she really takes on important causes and important work. And I think she does so without necessarily wanting to be celebrated for it, without wanting the recognition. She does it because she's got that platform and she wants to put the spotlight on work that's important to her. And I think she's very amiable. She's always, every time I've been on an engagement with her, she's very, very friendly. She's a joy to be around. And I think, as you saw from that picture of her, you know, she looks wonderful at 60. She's incredibly photogenic, and there's a sense, I think, that she's really come into her own.
Whenever I speak to people that have been on engagements with her as well, it's always the same thing, that she's a very popular royal among people that work in that environment. She seems to be a lovely person. So a very happy birthday to the Duchess of Edinburgh. We're going to finish up now with some quick fire questions, and we are going to stay on Sophie. It was her birthday this week, as we've discussed. If you had been invited to her party, what would you have taken her as a gift?
I would have taken her a tennis racket, because I know that her and Ed would love to play real tennis together.
Oh, real tennis. Oh, that's fun. That's a good one. And shows you know her, a very good personal gift. Still on birthdays, which royals party would you most like to attend?
Well, it's Princess Anne's 75th. I think I mentioned that earlier. This year, I sat down and interviewed her for her 70th birthday for Vanity Fair. And I'd love the chance to sit down with her again. She was quite formidable as an interviewee, and I think, you know, she's got such a unique perspective on the whole of the royal family. She's seen it evolve and change over the decades, and I think with her lifetime of experience, yeah, I'd like to go to her birthday party.
She'd have some good stories, yeah. So William recently popped up in a Wetherspoons for a pint. What's the most unexpected place you've seen a royal turn up?
Oh gosh,
like on tours, occasionally they just show up.
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't bump into them, but we ended up in a bar in the hotel with William and Catherine on one of our tours. That's many years back in when we were in India and Bhutan. So it's not that uncommon to see him at a bar.
Oh, he sounds like fun. We're well into 2025 now. What royal story would you love to see unfold this year?
Do you know what? I'd love to see the Prince and Princess of Wales carry out a mini tour, whether that's here in the UK or something a little further afield. I think it would be really fantastic. So let's hope that might be on the horizon.